Today is Friday, June 25th, and up next is the collapse in Florida.
Has been a tragic night. We do have 120 people now accounted for, which is very, very good news. But our unaccounted for number has gone up to 159. In addition, we can tragically report the death count is now 4. I want to be very clear about the numbers. They're very fluid. We'll continue to update you as we have them, but we have confirmed 4 deaths. The search and rescue team worked throughout the night, and it was a very active scene from above and below. And we also brought heavy machinery onto the site to assist with the operation. And so we are very, very grateful that our president has now authorized FEMA support.
Have you seen anything that leads you to believe there are still people alive there?
We will continue search and rescue because we still have hope that we will find people alive. That is exactly why we're continuing, and that is why we're using our dogs and our sonar and our cameras, everything possible to seek places where there may still be people to be found.
Lawsuits were reportedly filed about cracks in Florida tower that collapsed. The Florida apartment building that suffered a devastating partial collapse was unstable, sinking for decades, and had recently developed sizable exterior cracks, according to reports. The Champlain Tower south in Surfside has been sinking at a rate of about 2 millimeters a year in 1990s, according to a 2020 study conducted by Szymon Wardowski, a professor at Florida International University. And on Thursday, town officials said the high-rise has been undergoing a county-mandated 40-year recertification process, which involves electrical and structural inspections. But reports have also emerged about cracks in the 12-story structure. In 2015, a resident sued the condo association for failing to fix cracks in the outside wall of her unit, citing a lawsuit filed in Miami-Dade County. The owner, whom the network could not reach for comment, said the cracks led to water damage that cost $15,000. The court documents noted that the cracks were a structural issue, so the association was liable for the cost. The resident had previously filed a lawsuit against the association in 2001 because of a similar issue. The two sides reached a settlement in the case, but that kind of cracking was described as of interest in the county's structural recertification form, according to the outlet. The building was 40 years old before collapsing. Cracked walls or shifting foundations can be indications that sinking has affected the stability of a building. Had there been changes in the building, cracks in the walls and the floors not being level, things rolling off tables, he said, that would suggest the building had been shifting. An attorney for the law firm that represents the resident-led association that operates the Champlain Tower said the building had hired an engineer for a 40-year recertification process as is required under the county building code. They were well into the review with the engineer about the project. The engineer had identified the needed repairs for the building to meet structural standards as part of the recertification process. They were just about to get started on it, adding that he had seen nothing to suggest that the collapse had anything to do with the issues identified in the engineering review. He told the paper that any waterfront building of that age would have some level of corrosion and concrete deterioration from exposure to ocean salt, and added if there had been anything to suggest the collapse was possible, the review process would have been handled very differently. Everyone is going to have to wait for the results of a thorough engineering investigation. The Florida building codes were strengthened after Hurricane Andrew in 1992, and retired Miami County's building chief Charlie Danger, who helped strengthen the codes, told the Times that the county began requiring structural engineers to recertify buildings at the 40-year mark after a federal building collapsed in Miami in 1974, killing at least 6 people. Architect Cody Karp, whose company has worked on several prominent buildings in Surfside and Miami Beach, said the way that the Champlain Towers buildings collapsed and the fact that it was only 40 years old suggested a possible internal failure.
Come from a real estate background with your dad. I was in one of your buildings in Manhattan yesterday. We had a tragedy just south of Mar-a-Lago in the Bal Harbour area, Surfside, Florida. This 12-story building built 1981, so before those Hurricane Andrew building codes were put into place in the early 90s. What do you make of this? Should the vice president, I hate to say this, but should she skip going to the border today and maybe travel to South Florida, or is that something that wouldn't be appropriate right now?
No, I think she should go to the border, and I think she should go to the real part of the border, not a part of the border that's seldom violated.
Right.
And I think she should do it, and then she could come back and do this. Look, the border is causing death at a level that nobody's ever seen before. You know, you have people dying in the deserts, and they have no water, and they're coming in by the thousands, and they're coming in sick, and they're spreading disease to our country, and just unbelievable how bad it is. And then she should go. The building is being well handled by Ron DeSantis and the group, and there's not much they can do other than the first responders who have been so incredible, but
right.
Nobody can get very close to the rest of the building. It's a very interesting thing because I built a lot of concrete frame, and I looked at the frame. That's a very light frame. I don't know if you guys recognize it. Did you see how thin those slabs are on the floor?
Yeah.
And how thin those columns are? And you look at it, and our former great First Lady said that it looks like a very weak building. Well, it was a very weak building. But when you look at that thin floor plate, and you look at those little columns, it was, when it crumbled, it became almost dust. There was some bad work going on over there, some bad construction work. That was not a building that if anybody saw that frame, that's not a building people want to live in, especially in a place with hurricanes and other things. So there's a lot of thinking to be done. That's a terrible thing that happened. You see that played over and over again, the collapse. It was just a total collapse.
Yeah.
But that was a structurally deficient building, in my opinion.
Camilla has no answer for why it took 3 months for her to visit the border.
Hi everyone. Well, it's good to be back in Texas, and I am honored to be joined by Secretary Mayorkas, by Chairman Durbin, by Congresswoman Escobar. We have a day planned that will be about, as much as anything, addressing the effects of what I've already been addressing, which are the root causes of migration, predominantly out of Central America. You've heard me say many times, most people don't want to leave home. And when they do, it is usually because either they are fleeing some type of harm, or they cannot take care of the simple and basic needs of their family by staying where they are. And so we are here today to address and to talk about what has brought people to the U.S. border, and again, to continue to address the root causes which cause people to leave and often flee their home country.
Decide that right now was the right time to make your first trip to the border?
Well, it's not my first trip. I've been to the border many times.
As the person in charge of the response.
So, the important aspect of this visit is leading this visit after the work that we did in Guatemala and Mexico. Because as I've long said, I said back in March I was going to come to the border, so this is not a new plan. But the reality of it is that we have to deal with causes and we have to deal with the effects. So being in Guatemala, being in Mexico, talking with Mexico as a partner, frankly, on the issue, was about addressing the causes, and then coming to the border at the advice and actually the invitation of the Congresswoman is about looking at the effects of what we have seen happening in Central America. And so I'm glad to be here. It was always the plan to come here, and I think we're going to have a good and productive day.
Sure, Madam. Correct. Yes, ma'am. It's important. Honestly, this is. I think one of the things they do.
We don't want you.
Go back! Go back!
You don't have to.
Good morning, America. This is Irene Armendariz Jackson in El Paso, Texas, and I'm here to say, Kamala, you came a little too late. We have had this crisis for years. We need solutions. We don't need you parading in the Border Patrol station or acting like you care. Americans matter. America matters. God bless you, America.
Oh, the light.
And this is a tweet by the House Republicans. Vice President Kamala Harris isn't even going to the border. She's flying into El Paso and going to a Border Patrol facility that's miles from the physical border before flying to LA for the evening. And this is the letter from Office of the Vice President. And the location. Chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs General Miley. Here's a flashback. In 2016, General Miley, who now promotes critical race theory in the U.S. Army, traveled to Beijing and congratulated General Li Zhozhang on being appointed by Xi Jinping as the head of the People's Liberation Army.
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
Thank you, General.
Janice McAfee, the widow of antivirus creator John McAfee, blames U.S. authorities for his death, says he was not suicidal.
John McAfee was not suicidal. I spoke with him a few hours before he was found dead. We spoke about the court's decision to extradite him to the U.S. It did not come as a surprise to either of us. We were prepared for that decision and had a plan of action already in place to appeal that decision. I blame the U.S. authorities for this tragedy. Because of these politically motivated charges against him, my husband is now dead. His last words to me were, "I love you and I will call you in the evening." Those words are not words of someone who is suicidal. All John wanted to do was spend his remaining years fishing and drinking. He did not deserve to die in a filthy prison like a caged animal. We knew that there would be an uphill battle to continue to fight this situation, but he's a fighter. He's always a fighter, and anybody that knows John, that knows him even a little bit, knows that about him. He would never quit this way. He would never take his life in this way. I didn't believe he did this, and I will get answers. I want answers of how this was able to happen.
I just wanted to point out a little search for John McAfee's wife brought up some ugly, ugly stuff that the media is trying to do to her now that she came out and said that he didn't kill himself. Look at these articles. They want to talk about her and dig up stuff on her. See? Talking trash. All these little facts about her, and they're just bringing up the trash. And today, the judge gives ex-police officer Derek Chauvin 22.5 years for George Floyd's murder. So I have a few videos to add. The defense had asked for probation and had unsuccessfully sought a retrial ahead of an expected appeal. Okay.
When you ask about him, what are you asking about?
Well, I was asking, how did my dad get hurt?
Do you wish that he was still here with us?
Yeah, but he is.
Through his spirit?
Yes.
Yes. And when you see your daddy again one day, what do you want to do when you see him?
I want to play with him. We used to have dinner meals every single night before we went to bed. My daddy always used to help me brush my teeth.
How do you hope that the world remembers him?
Well, they helped him because those mean people did something to him.
Yeah. If you could say anything to your daddy right now, what would it be?
It would be, I miss you and I.
No matter where you go, where you are, I will always be there to visit you. I promise you I will stay strong, as we talked about, and I want you to do the same for me. I will do what you told me to do, take care of myself. So,
your opportunity, if you wish to give any input to the court, and so I turn it over to you and your attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, due to some additional legal matters at hand, I'm not able to give a full formal statement at this time. But very briefly, though, I do want to give my condolences to the Floyd family. There's going to be some other information in the future that would be of interest, and I hope things will give you some peace of mind. Thank you.
And I'll note that I did read your comments in the pre-sentence investigation as well.
Thanks, Ron.
We're looking at a potentially deadly situation in the Pacific Northwest. So we're talking about historic, dangerous, and really we could break all-time records. So a lot of numbers out there. 22 million people will be impacted over the next few days. It's not just today, Saturday, Sunday, into the early next week, and that's where it really becomes dangerous. It's not just the temperature, it's the duration of it. So where you see that hot pink, that is your heat warning, and the darker pink, that's your heat watch. But I do expect that to be extended over the next several days. So this is a situation or the setup. We have an area of high pressure. Think of that as a heat pump. We also have a drought situation. So that's adding to it. We have really long days too, being in the summer. So that's going to add to these numbers. We're looking at temperatures today, not all that bad. Still well above average for this time of year for this area. Look at Portland, 18 degrees above average today, 93 degrees, 95 in Pendleton. But as we get through the next several days, Saturday and Sunday, that's where we're going to see the really dangerous situations. We're talking about triple digits, Eugene 102, Portland 104, 106 in Medford. And some people in their lifetime in these spots have not seen these temperatures ever. So we could break some daily records for sure, and also some all-time records, including monthly records as well. Sunday, another hot one. There's that duration, 108 in Portland, expected 102 in Seattle, and 101 in Spokane. And this is where we're seeing records of 102. So certainly it's a good bet that we're going to be breaking some records. It lasts at least until next Wednesday, where we start to see that heat expanding to the south, but at least the Pacific Northwest will finally get some relief.
Trump blasts New York. Witch hunt for suspending Giuliani's law license. On Thursday, an appeals court suspended Rudy Giuliani from practicing law in New York, and Trump fired back saying New York should be ashamed of themselves. An attorney disciplinary committee asked the court to suspend his license, asserting that he violated professional conduct rules, misleading information to courts and lawmakers and the public at large in pursuing investigations. And here's his statement from Donald Trump. Can you believe that New York wants to strip Rudy Giuliani, a great American patriot, of his law license? Unbelievable. Well, that's the end of our podcast today. We will see you again tomorrow. In the meantime, go with kindness and love.